Hi everyone, it's Reilly. I hope you're dealing well with the heat. I think last time I talked about rainy season, and at least here in Kagawa it wasn't super rainy. I think maybe the first week or so of the official rainy season was kind of rainy. But since then, the last 2 weeks, it's been pretty mild. It's been pretty sunny actually around here. And now it's starting to get hot, like proper summer, around 30 degrees or something like that. So I think last time I did a bit of a preview about the rugby tournament. So on this solo episode, I'll talk about what actually happened during the rugby tournament. But before that, I should probably do the Instagram stuff. So my Instagram is Reilly Sullivan XD, and Sota is eigonosota. I guess that's it. So without further ado, let's talk about the rugby tournament. So the tournament started at about 9 a.m., or at least teams were supposed to arrive at 9 a.m. And the tournament was in Tokushima. So coming from Kagawa, Tokushima's not so far away, but the location of the ground, I guess you'd say, the field where we would be playing was like a 20-minute drive or so from the center of Tokushima. And none of us had cars, so we were going to take a bus, and then we ended up taking taxis from like the Tokushima station area to the field. And because of the bus and the taxi, it was going to take us 2 hours or something to get to the actual playing area. And then 9 a.m. minus 2 hours. So we ended up getting up, I forget, pretty early, because we also had to get to the bus station, which is, a little bit far from our house. So we woke up at 5:30 or something like that. So it started off with an early morning. But it went off all right, and we eventually got to the field. And as soon as we got there, as soon as we kind of drove into the parking lot, we saw some of the other teams, and we already knew that we kind of were in for a tough day. A lot of the teams looked pretty fit. I think the first team we saw there their team name was the Aussies. And for those that don't know, Aussie, right, is kind of like slang, I guess, for Australian. So this team, the Aussies, which we had heard about before, and maybe I mentioned on the last episode, because we got a packet of the rules and some of the teams and where they were coming from, and one of them just said Australia. And at that time, we kind of weren't sure if what? There's a team coming from Australia? We kind of figured that it was people who lived in Japan but were all from Australia. So one of my teammates, Tim, is from Australia, so he went up to them and he said, "Hey, where are you guys from?" And they said, "Oh, we're from Brisbane." And he said, "Oh, cool, where do you live in Japan?" And they said, "Oh no, we don't live in Japan. We're just here for the tournament." So this team of 7 or 8 people flew from Australia to Tokushima, I guess, for a 2-day tournament. And I hope they had other plans to go around Japan and maybe see the sights, but I don't know, pretty intense travel plan, I guess. Pretty intense dedication to touch rugby. So anyway, the tournament gets started. There's 15 teams, maybe around 8 to 10 players on each team, so it's pretty busy on this Shikoku University rugby soccer field. So we get the rules. We do a little bit of practice with some of the teams, some of the other teams. There were about 3 or 4 three or four other, they call it AJET teams, basically teams of English teachers. There was our team from Kagawa, two teams from Ehime, and one or two teams from Tokushima. So yeah, we were talking to them a bit, getting to know them. It turned out that we were not in the same group as, like, the tournament was kind of structured in a way where you had 5 teams in one group that would play each other on the first day. And depending on how well you did, you would go to the second day and you would get a new group that was kind of like your level, I guess. So on the first day, we didn't have any of these teams in our group. Our group was, I think, 2 university teams, because, maybe I mentioned a little bit, the universities sponsored the event. Shikoku University sponsored the rugby tournament or something like that. So many of the teams there were from Shikoku University's, like, rugby circle or something like that. So, yeah, our group had 2 university teams. One, I don't know what you call them. I guess just like casual players of like different ages, kind of like a mixed team, I guess. And then one team that were called the Flying Fijians or something like that. I think they were from Fukuoka, and they were, sure enough, like mostly from Fiji, but I guess had lived in Japan for a while. And yeah, when we saw them, we were pretty worried too, because, you know, Fiji is pretty famous for rugby. And yeah, some of these guys were pretty big. I guess size doesn't matter a ton in touch rugby, tag rugby, because, you know, nobody is hitting each other, tackling each other. But even so, it was a little bit intimidating. So, yeah, so anyway, during the tournament, we played 4 matches on the first day, and the first game was against one of the university teams, and we got absolutely manhandled, destroyed. I think the score was like 8-1, maybe 7-1, something like that. Just really bad. But part of that was that at this tournament there was like different ways to score points. So like if a woman scored a try, a goal, I guess you could say in other sports, then it was worth 2 points. If a man over 40 or over 45 or something like that scored a try, it was 2 points. And then if a man over 60 or a woman over 40 scored, it was worth 3 points. So I think when this team played us, they had a woman scored like 2 of their tries, so they were worth double points. Yeah. So, but anyway, it was brutal. Then we played against another team, the mixed team, I guess you could say, and we just managed to beat them, I think like 1-0. And we played against the Fijians, and the Fijians was a really close game for most of it, but they had one older man score, so double points, and they also had a woman score, so double points again. So even though I think it ended up being like 3 tries, the Fijians scored 3 tries and we scored 2 tries, but because they were worth double, it was something like 6-2 or something at the end. And then we had one more match against another university team that we lost. So on the first day, I think we went 1-3, so 1 win and 3 losses. But, you know, it was still really fun, and some of the matches were close, even though we lost them. So then, yeah, after the actual tournament on the day, I should mention, on the last game of that first day, one of our players, Keon, he scored a try, and in order to score a try in rugby or touch rugby, you have to touch the ball to the ground at the end of the field. So sometimes in order to do that, if someone's chasing you, you have to dive, right? Because you want to get away from them and you want to touch the ball to the ground quickly. So toward the end of one of the games, I think was it the game we won? I don't remember which game, but Keon dove and scored a try very kind of heroically, but in that moment when he stood up, he looked like he was clearly hurting. So he came off the field. We substituted another player in for Keon, and I was off the field at that time, so I was kind of looking after Keon. He said something was wrong with his shoulder. He couldn't move his arm above his head. So we said, okay, don't play anymore today. Take a break. And actually, after the tournament, he went to a doctor, and it turns out he broke his collarbone. So the collarbone is that bone. It's kind of on top of your shoulder, kind of connects your neck. I guess one of the bones in your neck to your shoulder on either side. So yeah, he broke his collarbone. So pretty, yeah, I think I said earlier, heroic, pretty tough play by Keon. And actually, there were a few other injuries from people on other teams. In one of the first games, a player, I think, broke his ankle. An ambulance had to come to take him to the hospital. So yeah, even though it's touch rugby, it's still pretty rough, I guess. Then, so after that first day, there was kind of an after party for the AJET teams, for the, I guess, English teacher teams. So we went to like an izakaya type place and had a all-you-can-drink kind of course meal, and got to know some of the people from Tokushima and Ehime. Yeah, so they were really nice. It was nice to meet them, and we made a few plans for the future. I think we're going to play soccer in Ehime later this year, and then maybe Kagawa is the only Shikoku I guess Kochi too. But of those three prefectures, Kagawa is the only one that hasn't hosted some kind of sporting event. So I think we have to make some kind of plan for that in the future. But anyway, yeah, so we had the after party thing, ended up going kind of late, so eventually we all went to bed, and the next day, second day of the tournament, some members of our team were a little bit worse for wear, a little bit hungover, I guess. So we had the second day, because we went 1 and 3 on the first day, we didn't do very well. We were in the lowest bracket for the second day, the lowest grouping. So it's 3 teams. It was us against the 2 Ehime AJET teams. So we were actually kind of excited for that because, it was people that we had met the night before, people that we talked to and now kind of friends with, and also people that were more on our level, because most of us on our team had never played touch rugby before. And, the university teams, the Fijians, just were clearly a lot better. So yeah, that second day, we had the matches against the AJET teams, and we managed to win both of them. They were the second one was a pretty close game. I think it ended like 2-1 or something like that. We just managed to beat them. But it was cool because like every game from the first day to the second day, every game our team was like getting better, kind of learning the strategy a little bit and like figuring out where we're supposed to be on the field, and every game we were improving. So that was nice. And I think the other teams were similar, the other AJET teams who had not played rugby ever before. We're also kind of getting better each time. So like by the last game of the tournament, us versus one of the Ehime teams, it felt like a real match. It felt a little bit less like some amateurs kind of, messing around and having the referee have to tell them what to do. And it felt more like, obviously not professional, but like a little bit more serious of a match. Yeah. So after that, we were finished, and because we won in the lowest bracket, our team ended up being 13th out of 15 teams. So, not the best result, but it was okay. Then we watched the other games, and I think the last game of the tournament was the game for first place. So that ended up being one of the university teams from our group on the first day, who had beaten us, whatever it was, 7-1 or 8-1, versus the Aussies, the group of players from Brisbane. And it was a really fun game to watch. It was really interesting how the styles were different. The university teams tended to kind of run quickly in like a straight line. So one person would take the ball, run forward, get touched. Another person would take the ball and do the same thing right until they were at the goal line. But the Aussies played in a much more kind of free style where they were passing the ball back and forth a lot. So it was interesting to watch these kind of two play styles. But the Aussies ended up winning. I guess they deserved it because they, came all the way from Australia. But yeah, so that was cool. So we watched the Aussies win, and then there was kind of like a closing ceremony where one player from each team got like I don't know what you'd say, most valuable player or most important player award and got a t-shirt. And I got one for our team. I guess they said I was the most important player, but I really don't think that's the case. Like, I was not the best player. I didn't score any tries. So I don't know if they just picked me because I was like the captain of the team, the leader, but yeah, it was nice to get a shirt. That was cool. And overall, I think the tournament, even though we didn't do very well, 13th place, it was really, really fun, and I think we're going to try to go again next year, those of us that are still in Japan next year. I know I'm planning to be. And actually, but a few of us have continued to go to practices even after the tournament. So we were practicing with one of the Japanese teams from Kagawa, and we've been practicing with them. And I think we're going to keep that up for as long as we can. As I mentioned in kind of the intro, it's getting really hot out, so we'll see how long we can actually keep doing that. But yeah, so far it's really fun playing rugby, and it was a really good experience. So yeah, I guess this one went a little bit long. Thanks for listening, guys, and I'll see you next time. Bye.